microphone now. Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and start this special meeting of the Board of Finance dated March 2nd, 2022 to order, please. Present are Paul Simons, Mike Anderson, Carl Johnston, Gary Anino, Sarah Nelson, Amy Friend, and Winona Birdie. We'll start with the first agenda item, please, for public comments, if there are any. So I do see Brian Raffin. Brian, I think you can go ahead if you're ready.
Okay, yep. I know the Board of Selectmen is supposed to present their budget, and one thing I'd like to see, and I've been saying this for years, maybe not as vocal as I am, but I'd like to see the second and third selectmen salaries increased. And the reason I say this, they're the overseers of our town, and they're basically the commander in chiefs of all the committees and everything in town. They spend an awful lot of hours, which all our volunteers do that are on committees, and I think it's like $2,500 a year they receive. I think we really ought to look at that, and I don't know how to base it. So what I did to myself, I based it on, I know there's 2,080 hours of work in a year. So let's take half of that. It's 1,040 hours a year. And let's give them 15 an hour. That'd be 15,000. I recommend you bring the second and third selectmen's pay up to 15,600 a year on those two lines. The selectmen you can leave right now, I'd say, because I know Bob he wants to see how he does the first year. But I know the second and third selectmen are putting in a lot of hours, and anybody in that position does, and I think they deserve it. And the town employees, I always see them getting raises. I see the school employees getting raises. I think you know where I'm coming from on that. And I very seldom say raise anything in the budget, but that's one thing I think we, as a town, really lack on doing. And I really like to see the Board of Finance look at that and do something with it, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Brian. You're right. Those folks do work extremely hard. So we'll see what the budget brings. Anybody else online with a question?
We have two in the room when you're ready for those.
Yep, please go right ahead, whatever order you choose, Christy.
Joe, go ahead, come up to the microphone. So we're going to start with Joe Gross.
Okay.
I found my material was hidden. I'd like to know what the Board of Finance is doing with a 5-year plan as it's been presented for the years of 2022 and 2023. You all have it, I believe. And then I'd like to know, you had a thing where you put a form whenever we were sending requests to the budget to the Board of Finance. Do you use this one that's like the encyclopedia? Or do you use this one, which is simplified and you could understand very simple? So I'd like to know which two you're using, or if you're using none, then I think we'd like to get together with you guys and see if we can come up with something. We are with them. The other question is, I don't have much time here to speak other than at the beginning of the meeting, so I got quite a few questions here regarding the budget. And if you don't mind, I'd like to be able to go over them. First one is the same thing as Brian mentioned. The selectmen should receive an increase in their budget. It's the Board of Finance's responsibility if you take no other responsibility upon yourself. The first one, you better bring the first selectmen's budget up. You're damn fortunate to have a gentleman take that position this year for 50,000. If you went through the budget and you took the other boards that's in this town, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different boards that have 50% less responsibility than the first selectman. Yet you can sit here and have it at 50,000. It should be increased in 2 increments if you can't take it in one. Then we'll put it back to the first one, which was there last year, and then up to the 60 something. You've got to look out for the town. We've been doing this for years, and to lose it all in 1 year, we can't allow that to happen. I think I'll just leave the rest of these go here because I can go over with the selectmen, but I thank you for the thing. My big question is why don't we have public comments at the end of the meeting? Most of the comments you get at your hearing is going to be on stuff that we're talking about because nobody's going to be up on the latest stuff as far as the budgets and that go. So the most questions you'll have is after they get the budget, maybe they could ask some questions. And I could see it being during the budget hearing and not allowing the public to comment all the time because this is the Board of Finance budget meeting, and I respect that. And I think the public's got to respect that. But maybe we could look at, see if we can correct some of the action that we have and get some of that in there if you could. I would appreciate if we could have some comments at the end of it. Thank you.
Joe, I had one question for you before you walk away. The 5-year plan, was it the 5-year capital plan you were talking about?
You got to take it easy on me. I'm a senior citizen. I didn't hear. I didn't have my.
Oh, sorry about that.
I don't wear my hearing aids because I've lost them 3 times with a mask. Every time you take that mask off, you lose a hearing aid. So I don't wear them. Period.
I understand.
Yes. That's the capital plan. Yeah, you're right, Paul.
Thank you. Or anything else, Joe? I mean, I know that we had a couple of forms there. I didn't see what you had, but we can look at those. And I know that public comments, I did take that off at the end. I thought they'd be more valuable up front, but that's something certainly we can revisit if the board thinks it's useful. Okay, I think Sean Murphy.
Yes, Paul. Just a couple of comments, and the first one has to do with the selectman's salary. I think the Board of Selectmen neglected to spend enough time on that, and it was left at the current salary. And I would encourage the Board of Finance to at least apply the 2% increase to this salary, like other positions are proposed to increase. As far as the selectmen salaries, they have adjusted. You'll see that they have adjusted those up more than the 2%. And I thought interesting in this morning's Westerly Sun, there was an article about Hopkinton's council members' stipends, and it looks like that we are fairly close in line to what the councilmen are getting in a town similar our size. They were proposing to increase the councilman there to $3,250, and I think you'll find that those are in this year's budget proposal for $3,000. So I don't agree with what Brian had to say as far as that we're that far off, but I think so I think those are fairly close. That's all I had, Paul.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what the Board of Selectmen have for their budget tonight and what adjustments they have made or suggested in their budgets. Anybody else in the room for public comments, please?
No one else has a hand.
Great, thank you. So hearing none, I think we go ahead to the third item on our agenda, which is the Board of Selectmen budget presentation. I think,
For
Okay,
those
fine.
Board of Finance members that are online, I just sent you an email of the copy of the budget since you're not in the room to get a physical.
thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Chairman and Vice Chairman Mike, and also to the Board of Finance members. This will be my first budget hearing, first budget presentation, so take it easy on me, be patient. We're going to have a little bit of a slideshow to go with it, where I've highlighted the changes that we made from our original budget. But prior to that, I just want to give you a little bit of background on how we approach this budget. As you know, we had 7 presentations given that we heard and the Board of Finance heard at the same time. And that made it a little bit easier to go back to the Board of Selectmen and discuss, because we all heard the same thing. On the things that weren't presented that the Board of Finance had not seen, pretty much in town hall departments, what I did, I would sit down with Christine, being the admin finance director. We looked at what kind of a budget increase was presented to us. Then we took the planning, the profit and loss statement through December. So we knew we were 6 months in, and see how it was tracking in this year's budget. If we found discrepancies in either a larger than what we thought would be a normal increase in a budget, and or something was tracking at a very low rate, here we are halfway through the year, and there wasn't a special circumstance saying that most of it gets paid at the end of the year, we would then approach that particular part of town hall, that department. Either Christine would go speak to them, or I would, or we both would. Some cases we had new people in the land office and in the tax collector's office. This is their first budget also. We could give them some guidance, and by doing that, we're able to lower some budget numbers. I think what we're presenting tonight is a fiscally responsible, fairly tight budget. I don't think there's a lot more room to move in it, but that'll be your decision. And we'll start by looking at revenue. So when you put up the first slide, Christine. Now, the way I presented revenue, and I had a suggestion to do this, and it made sense to me, is I took the new grand list that Darrell Grosso had supplied to us, and I put it in with today's mill rate, the 28.6% mill rate. And the reason I did that is because we know the mill rate historically doesn't go down. Hopefully it doesn't go up, but it tells you where we are in the grand list as of today. Now, some people say, well, that pretty much went up because of the motor vehicle increase in the taxes. That's somewhat true, but when you do the actual breakdown, the grand list went up by itself. 48% of the grand list was not due to the motor vehicle increase. 52% was. So we did have an increase in the grand list. Also, another factor in the grand list was, and I got the information from the Board of Ed, was the increase in students next year. That went from as you can see on the slide, 57,165. It went up to 114,330. Now, the good news is this is the beginning of something great, something when I was the chairman of the Board of Ed, advocated for, and here we are 4 years later, and with Christine Wagner's help, it's come to fruition. Next year, the number is actually going to go up another 91,464 with just the students that are already going to our school this coming year. Preston pays in the arrears. So we have 8 students from Preston that will be getting that money next year to go along with the money that comes in next year with that next group of students. Also, some things that are happening this year that will help revenue is, some of you may know, I've been working on leasing out the second floor of the 2-story wing. That's going very well. If all goes well, in the next few weeks, I'll be bringing that to a town meeting, and that could mean an increase of about $56,000 to $58,000 a year towards the grand list, which will pay for the entire 2-story wing. We also have some things that are coming up in the next couple of years. And I know it's not this year's budget that we're working on now, but we've got solar farms at Ella Wheeler. We got solar farms by Silicon Ranch on 184. As you said, the increase in students, 2 wineries that are in different phases right now. One's under construction, one that hasn't started yet. So there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot coming in the door through the land office, homes being built. And I think that North Stonington's put itself in a really good position by what we did to the school system a few years ago, attracting people in. We're attracting more businesses in. and the future looks pretty bright for the town going forward. Now, if we go back to the start with the slides, and we talked about the revenue a bit, so we want to just change the page now. Some factors in the budget that we had to consider. One is every 3 years, we have to do union contracts. We're working, there's two particular unions. One basically is for the town hall workers and one is for the highway garage. We're in the process right now of doing the negotiations with town hall. We haven't quite completed it yet. But as we looked around at neighboring towns, we're finding that the average is 2 to 2.5 to 2 3/4 increases, 2% to 2 3/4 increases. We're carrying a 2% increase in this budget. If for some reason that we miscalculated that, if we go up to a 2.5 after we've already presented the budget and you've agreed to it, when we get in time for the hearing, I think it's April 11th, the budget hearing, if we went up by 0.5% because of negotiations, that means about an extra $6,500 to the overall budget. If we go up to 2 3/4%, it means about a $9,500 approximately $9,500 increase to the overall budget. So it's not a budget killer per se. I think we haven't carrying the 2% puts us pretty close. Again, neighboring towns are in the same area. I haven't seen anyone come up with a 3%. So as long as we stay under 3, I think we're in a pretty good position. And obviously, the closer to 2 puts us closer to where what we're presenting this evening. The next thing on the factor was we had to create a line for this building. As we know, this has been a thorn in the town side over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, we had to go to the Board of Finance and get an appropriation to pay the fees, the expenses and the utilities for this building. This year, we're hoping to have enough ARPA funds left at the end to do the same thing. So we're not going to the Board of Finance. And hopefully next year, when we're talking here at the same time, we have a 1-story wing that's been demolished and a 2-story wing that's been rented. If we do those things, we'll be in a much better position. Third thing is utility cost. If anyone watched the speech last night by the president, I got through about 20 minutes of it and I had to go to bed. I couldn't take it, but that's off the record. Anyway, if you listen to that speech, you notice that everyone's talking about utility increases, increases in the cost of living, oil, and because of that, we have to consider that in the numbers in the budget this year because of the highway garage and the other places that we have to supply utilities. That utility increase also comes into play in our negotiation with the unions. They've heard that the Social Security went up 5.9%. So people have heard that. They also know that the gas has gone up quite a bit. They know that they go to the grocery store, the groceries have gone up quite a bit. It's just making this particular year a tough year to negotiate when the union comes in with all the ammunition of what's going on in the world today. Next slide. So what I'm going to do is, these are the line items I pulled out of the budget. You should have a complete budget and you can ask questions on any line item you'd like. But I'm pulling out the line items that we worked on as a Board of Selectmen. And a lot of times people say, well, what line are you talking about? Well, it's on the sheet up above. So start with B603 tax collector computer expense. We received that in as a $10,000 submittal. And we agreed to decrease that by $2,000 to $8,000. Christine, does the Board of Finance members here have this? No. Okay.
We're on page 4 of the budget.
I'll give the line item each time I'm talking about a change, but so that was B603. Next one is B1502 Economic Development Coordinator. That was in there originally as a $7,500 number. We dropped that down to $6,000, and that was a minus $1,500 deduction. Next line. Well, let me go backwards for 1 second. I apologize. This is where it comes in, like being doing a budget hearing, budget presentation. So I wanted to address what was brought up by 3 people in the public comment as far as the selectman compensation. Okay, as the first selectman, I will tell you, I got elected knowing what the money was that paid. And I'm in a position, luckily, because I am retired and I have set myself up somewhat for retirement. So it wasn't a job that I had to do for the money, and I'm able to do it. And I'm also, because I'm retired, I can do it as a full-time position. I'm not there's no problem with me staying at the $50,000, at least for this year. Next year, we may have a different conversation because we'll be looking at either myself running again or somebody taking my spot. If I decide not to run, or if I get beat, somebody else is going to want to have this position. And I'll tell you, putting in 50 to 60 hours a week, and I know that's my decision to do that, but I think that's what I need to do to be the kind of the first selectman that you'd want me to be. The next person may not want to do that for $50,000. So next year we'll have a different conversation, but this year I think this is what I got elected at, and I think that's the fair way to do it. As far as my two counterparts, I have two wonderful selectmen, Nicole and Brett. I think we all bring something different to the table, and I think that it's probably is about as good as a mix as I could hope for. And I couldn't do what I do without them. I try to keep them as informed as possible. The last first selectman referred to himself, and I understand why, that he's the CEO of the town. And I'm not going to knock that comment because I understand now being in the seat how that works. But I don't want to forget the fact that I'm also the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And because of that, I have to inform them on things that go on a day-to-day basis. They come to the meetings prepared, they come to the meetings with questions, and and then a lot of times that we'll have discussions, and either we'll all agree, or I'll change my mind. If I'm not opposed to think some might have a better idea than I do. So I'm lucky to have them. And because of that, if you look at where they were at $2,703, that's pretty much where myself and Nita were 4 years ago. So I'm proposing that the two selectmen get bumped up to $3,000 each. Okay, back on schedule. B2006, employee benefits pension, that just went down $600 because of information we received from the pension company. North Stonington Education Center operating. That was presented to us in the budget. Originally, we put $100,000 to carry that. We know it was around $150,000 this year. We're anticipating that the one-story wing will come down. That'll save us about a third of the expenses. And when me having income coming in from the two-story wing, I think it would drop it even more. So that's why we dropped it from $100,000 down to $85,000. So it's a $15,000 decrease. The Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center, who's been doing wonderful things for us, being at the library. We've had a large number of citizens going to the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center, getting food, getting oil assistance, and so on. They asked us for a fairly large increase this year, up to $40,000. Because we gave them some money through the ARPA funding, we felt it was okay to drop that down. So we dropped that down by $10,000 down to $30,000. Women's Center Safe Futures and Frank Olin Center, we went back to last year's numbers. So you'll see there's minus $250 decreases in both those cases. TVCA, we dropped that by $400, but we did give them some money out of the ARPA funding. Always Home, dropped it by $250, brought that back to where it was last year. United Community and Family Services, this is a little bit trickier. They asked for $8,564. You see, we dropped it by $5,000. Talking to Mrs. Costanza, this is one of the most valuable partners we have. They deal a lot with mental health coming through community conversation. Mental health was a big subject. And because of that, it looks like, well, what do? We dropped it $5,000 after you just said it's one of the most important partners we have. But we gave them $5,000 out of the ARPA funds to make up for that. B2502, IT digitized maintenance, we dropped down by $2,495. B2604. Christine, I don't have that. Oh, I can look it up. Never mind.
And just a note on the digitized maintenance, it was an increase of $2,495.
Oh, excuse me. You're right. Thank
Yes.
you.
And the B26.04 is state troopers.
Okay, the state troopers. So that was what we did there is they had gave us $441,784. But part of that was a discretionary overtime. And we felt that we could drop that, so we dropped that by $20,000. B2703 town garage expenses, $24,000. And speaking with Donnie Hill, we came up with a number of $22,000. We dropped it by $2,000. And again, some of these were discussions, some of these are going back and looking at year-to-date in the profit and loss statement, like streetlights. The request was $12,000. We dropped it by $2,000. Diesel and gas. So we dropped this and say, well, why would you drop that when you just got through saying that utilities, oil, gas is going up? Well, it is, but we're not tracking at that number. We're tracking lower than that. So we dropped it $2,000, and we still think that the new number is going to be that's went up by 2,000. Up. See, if I put my glasses on, I won't be able to see what I'm reading. I would be able to see that board though. So yeah, I'm not seeing the minus signs and the plus signs. Sorry about that. Okay, that's 2 strikes. I get 1 more to go. It's 2 mulligans so far. All right, so that was an add-on because we said gas and oil were going up. Yeah, that's better. That makes more sense. Okay, streetlights, we dropped by $2,000. Diesel and gas, we went up by 2,000. And town property maintenance labor, we went from 10,000 to 8,000, dropped it by 2,000. Next slide, Board of Selectmen changes again. This was a presentation given to the Wheel Library, by the Wheel Library to us. They had presented an ask of $85,000. There was much discussion on this. If you watch our last meeting, this discussion went on for about 15 to 20 minutes. And we had a compromise of dropping it $10,000 down to $75,000. I believe if you look at the last 3 budgets, it went 55, 65, 75. They also said in their yearly ask, in their yearly campaign, they were tracking behind what they normally would have, what they budgeted for. Land use attorney, we dropped that by $2,500. Land use expenses, we dropped by $2,500. B34.052, $5,000 was asked for by, it's in the planning department. We dropped that by $2,500. So the total changes that we as a Board of Selectmen, and we had those add-ons that Christina had mentioned, the net was a minus $74,255 on the Board of Selectmen budget. Again, not counting, at this point, we're not counting the capital. So let's go to capital. The first one, I think we all heard because Don Hill came in and asked for the $120,000 truck. The older truck was able to be fixed. So we can give that a couple more years of life. And he asked us to change up and go to a walking floor trailer. He explained it as the trailer that they use at the transfer station that the trash goes into. They pull it out, bring it to Lisbon. While that's out, the other one goes in. We have 2 of these. This was in disrepair. He was looking to replace that truck. He's still getting bids. Right now, he's coming up around $92,000, which is a $28,000 decrease from the $120,000 that was originally asked for in the original truck for the highway. Excuse me, for the transfer station. Town building maintenance, we dropped from $30,000 to $20,000. Look and see, we saw where that was tracking this year to date. Land acquisition fund came in as a $20,000 ask. Again, this was one that had a lot of debate, and we ended up compromising down to $2,000. We dropped it by $18,000. The thought was $2,000 will get that line item up to $75,000 overall. If the town's going to buy a piece of land or invest money in land, we're going to go to a town meeting anyway. So the town would have to agree on that purchase price. And having the $75,000 line item already in the budget, in the capital, would be a good start. Or may pay for the whole thing, but to keep putting money into it and ask taxpayers for money to put in here when we have to go to a town meeting anyway, we felt that there wasn't enough reason to put in a number like a $20,000 number. So the summary, the government operating budget is 2.83. Again, 26,000 of that right now is the 2% placeholder for the salaries, approximately 26,000. There's no change in the debt because this is the first year we didn't add on any additional debt with the schools. So that's a 0 increase. And the capital, which is 261,902, which is an increase of 107.89%. So we say, well, that's very high. Why do we go that high, but a lot of that is we're already obligated to. We are in the third year of the new tanker truck. We're on the fifth year of the ambulance, and on the fifth year of a dump truck, I believe. Mower, thanks. So that's why that increase in the capital. And we know that historically, when we go to cut this budget, capital is the first one that we look at because it's usually the biggest ticket numbers. But I don't think there's anything in capital this year that we're asking for that's outlandish. We do take our trucks. I was asked this by one of our taxpayers, what do we do with the trucks each year? We do take our trucks and refurbish at least one truck every year. During the winter months, we constantly spray the bottoms and get the salt off them. We put an undercarriage seal on them to get more use out of our trucks. So we do get the maximum use out of our trucks. It's not something every 5 years, we decide to just want to buy a new one. And that, I believe, unless it's another line here, that is the budget from the Board of Selectmen.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Well, just one initial question for me. I'm sure the other board members might have some questions, but the previous slides you showed what was submitted by departments and what you're proposing and that delta, whether it was plus or minus. Do you have a concise slide to say which line items you resulted in that 190, whatever the number was of your budget increase, where those line items were? I was trying to follow along with the budget on my other computer here, other screen here, but it was hard to.
So I'll let Christine answer that because I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. But
No, there's not anything specific that shows which line items have an increase. It's honestly most of them. So
Across the board increases.
So I think so we did send you a copy of the budget. I think when requested it.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. Like I was trying to follow that with your presentation. It got a little clunky for me, but I'm hearing pretty much across the board increases of some sort on many of those items.
Well, some stayed the same, so that's not the case. But we sent you a budget, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was, I think, the second rendition of our budget after you asked for it. And so if you look at that budget and look at the final budget, which you just received, you'll be able to see what happened there.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. I was just hoping for one slide, but I can go through the rows as well. Great, thank you.
Yeah. So Paul, every salary line has a change. And Bob and I counted those and I can't even remember how many it was, but it was a lot.
Somewhere around 24,
Yeah.
25.
And then a lot of the operating have increases, like we talked about with the utility costs. We tried to keep anything the same or lower if we could.
Yep, no, I understand. Okay, yeah, it'll take some time for me to digest this, but any other questions for First Selectman Carlson from the Board of Finance?
Christine, when does the Board of Finance get back to us? On the 18th?
16.
16th, excuse me. Okay.
Sarah Nelson has her hand up.
Hi,
Great.
Sarah.
Hello. I have a couple questions. So what is B2602 IT digitized maintenance? What is that?
Are you
Christine,
asking what goes into it or are you asking what makes up the increase that we did?
No, what goes into it?
Okay, so I'll pull up what Jim submitted, but this is, so Board of Finance members, you all have access to all of the department submissions in the SharePoint. But
Christine, what line did she ask for?
B2502.
Thank you.
Okay, so digitized maintenance is the digitized map maintenance, Civic Plus, which is our website hosting, ESRI software, Sophos antivirus, QDS, which is our assessor software, QDS, which is also our tax collector software, Equality, which is our CAMA database, and Infinite Visions.
Okay. And Infinite Visions is the new software that's just the yearly maintenance cost, not, I think we paid for the installation cost out of ARPA, right?
We're paying for that out of a capital line item. We did increase to share some of the burden with the Board of Education. That was what the $2,495 increase was that we changed from the first version to this. So we're paying 4,000 of the total cost that the that's incurred by the town and the district.
What is the total cost incurred by both boards?
14,000, I want to say 383.
Annually?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Christine. And then my other question is, I don't know if it's a question or more of a statement, but I'm just trying to understand the logic around the potential savings of 30% with the tear down of the building. That seems very like an optimistic estimate. I know if I tore down a third of my house, it would not cost me a third less than it does right now.
So the way that the utilities run for this building, there are separate boilers for different areas. We do think square footage wise that if we get rid of a third of the building, we will cut the costs. There's also maintenance costs that go into that would be reduced. There's repairs that we're having to do because of the age of the building that we wouldn't have to do those repairs if that part of the building didn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So that total last year was around 150,000. If we're able to recoup about 56 to 58,000 and renting out the two-story wing, and in addition to the one-story wing being demolished, those two factors should easily go under the get under the $100,000 number.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any additional questions right now. It's gonna take, I'm with Paul, it's gonna take a little bit to go through the line by line, but I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else from the Board of Finance in the room or anywhere else for that matter have questions for First Selectman Carlson? Mike Anderson, you're recognized, my friend.
Thank you, Paul. Bob, thank you very much for your presentation. I just so we're all clear, I mean, you put up the slide at the end about the, you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. With the capital, because I think this is, it's important to really understand, the capital budget. Like you said, it always gets cut. And, that number looked big. It's what it was, $261,000 more than last year. But the slide that you showed was only the changes, some of the changes that you did from your earlier proposal, like the trucks down from 120,000 to 92K, and you had a couple other things. But I just want to have everyone kind of look at the capital budget on the new budget, so we all can see where all that money comes from.
Bob,
So
do you want me to do
Yeah,
highlights?
Michael, we can do Christine can give you a breakdown of the items that were on the part of the lease on the 5th year or the 3rd year of the lease, and then we have some other things. So
sure,
So-
sure. I'm just looking at, from what I can see, it's on page 9 of your budget.
correct.
Yeah, so
So-
what I'll do is I'll just go over what are new items, because I think that will help.
Right,
So
The-
we
the
did,
10 grand. Right.
so we have $10,000 for transfer station improvements. This had been a line item years ago with a smaller amount in it. But as the building ages and things need to be replaced, like the roll-up doors and different motors within, we felt it was important to put $10,000 towards that so that we can fix things as they break. We did, trying to be planful, as we've discussed, put $25,000 in for the bulky waste pile closure. And as we said, it could be $1 million+ for that down the road. So we're trying to be planful. The walking floor trailer we have next, which is $92,000. Then the next new one is additional is rescue gear for the fire company. Then $25,000 to replace the animal control vehicle. We have it in as 25,000 because the plan is to get a used vehicle. The ACO is currently using the fire chief's old vehicle. So there are a lot of things due to age and use that are starting to not work as well. We hope it gets through this year so that we can wait and to replace it until next year. Then we do have $50,000 in for parking lot resurfacing for the school. We are now 3 years past when the school opened. So in previous years, we resurfaced those parking lots every 3 years to keep them in a condition that we need them for the schools. So those are the only additional items that have not been in the past. And if you look back at the capital budget from 2 years ago, it was $502,035, and we are now asking for $504,065. So it's only about a $2,500 increase from 2 years ago.
And Mike, approximately about 160,000 of that of those dollars are the ones that are already predetermined by leases that we're involved in.
Right. That's C41 and C342.
And C 1.16. Tractor.
Right. The mower. All right. I just wanted to point it out and make sure that, everyone saw that, and, while we're here, because it looks like such a big jump, but Christine, that's a good point, that the actual from the year before, we just cut it so much last year. So thank you for the explanations, and I just thought it was important to really go over those.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Any other hands up in the room or anywhere else for the Board of Finance for questions for the
Arian,
select?
has a question.
Hey, Paul.
Oh.
Nice job, Bob, and Selectmen. Couple of the capital, one you hit was the resurfacing. I just picked up on that. Thank you for giving us that explanation. But you have 30,000 for the plan of conservation and development and 30,000 for the 1750 house repairs. What are those two?
Okay, so let's go to the 1750 house repair. That's going to be on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for next week. We have, we've got some grants, and up to this point, we haven't paid a lot of money to get to where we are in that. We encapsulated the lead paint. We got the studies done. We have plans done. If we want to move forward, and this is the decision that the Board of Selectmen will have to make with inputs for the Board through Hewitt Farm Committee, but the end game is it's the Board of Selectmen who make the final decision. We can either go to a $400,000 worth of repairs that's requested by the group, is it called Chapo? So if we do it their way, we end up with a museum grade 1750 house. It's going to cost the town, it'll be a $4,000 bill, cost the town $200,000, and Hartford pays the other $200,000 as part of a grant. Or we can replace the windows and do some other things just to get the house in a livable state. I mean, you could move in there now with the windows the way they are, but if it was warm weather, we want to live there in the winter with the windows the way they are. They're pretty antiquated with single pane glass. So we're guessing somewhere around $55,000 to $60,000 to get that work done, just to put the new energy efficient windows, fix the back porch, and nail down some loose floorboards and get somebody in there to rent the place. If we do that, we could start getting income from that building, hopefully as early as this summer. We could probably turn that work over in about 3 to 4 months. The SHPO plan is a 10-year plan, and you only allowed like $40,000 a year over 10 years. But some of those things that they want us to do are more than $40,000. I mean, if you want to do all new windows, siding, and trim, it could be $120,000. So we'll talk to the Board of, Hewitt Farm about it, but the Board of Selectmen will make that decision. The $30,000 in there now to go along with the $25,000 that are in there from the past year's budget gives us $55,000 and pretty much hits the nut that we have to do if we go to Plan B, which is just to get it livable. The first question was, okay, so the PLCD is due to be done in the 2023. We did a really good job in 2013.
doesn't have to be as comprehensive this time because we have a good place to start. Juliet and her crew back then and the community conversation committee that was then worked on that. So we're not starting from scratch, but it's still going to cost us quite a bit of money to get it done. And by budgeting, as Christine said, trying to come up with a plan and budget a little bit ahead of time, we have to have it done by the end of not this coming year, by the end of 2023.
So you need to pay for some of the data that you need to get to compile the report. And there's different community conversations and different things that play into it. So that's where the expenses come from. And then if you need assistance in writing parts of it, then that's also what you would pay for.
There was money in the budget last year for this to get cut, by the way.
That's a lot of zeros for a bunch of meetings.
You can talk to the PDZO on the specifics. I just know that there's data that needs to
Okay.
be paid for but I don't know I wasn't here in 2013, so I don't know all the pieces that go into it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Bob,
Yes,
is,
Mike.
is there money in a fund already for that?
I believe there's money. I don't know. We have no money. It got cut last year, didn't we?
No, we cut it down to 15,000 last year. So there's 15,000 in there this year, then projected for 30,000 next year for a total of 45,000 for the project.
What was the amount last year they got cut from? Do you remember?
30.
It was 30 last year. We cut it to 15.
Yes.
Okay. Does that answer the question, Mike?
Yeah, just like, so we got a placeholder. This money's out there for this future project. Okay.
One thing, I don't know if you mentioned it in the capital, is the bulky waste. Now, the Board of Selectmen have discussed this in the past as far as putting a bulky waste fee at the transfer station. It's really going to depend on what the Board of Finance comes back to us with as far as cutting the budget, as far as if we have to address that or not. We may address it anyway, but
Are you talking the landfill plan?
yeah, because again, there's no money in that. And we know somewhere down the road, could be 10 years from now, that's going to be a big ticket item. And there's no money in there to cover it right now. So if we start putting away money each year, we would have money toward it down the road. But again, we're the only free transfer station in the area. We're the only one that doesn't charge for bulky waste. We don't charge for stickers. And if we have to go back and do something with cutting the budget, we may look at putting in a bulky waste fee to go out and kind of offset that $25,000 that's in the capital. So it won't be shown as revenue to offset the capital. But again, we may address that anyway, whether we do anything with it on this on your side or not.
Paul, I have another question.
Go right ahead, Mike.
So if we look back on page 1, you have a 1.94% increase. Let's just say that education stays flat. What, with the revenue that we're projecting right now, what is this 1.94% increase due to our mill rate?
So Mike, I got to tell you something that just happened. So Christine Wagner had one foot out the door. She was walking out the door to her car. She heard you say that. She turned around. She's back on the floor. The pocketbook's on the floor. And she's ready to go. The coat's coming off. So you want
Tell
to?
Christine to relax. That's just for we're taking one variable out of it.
That's right. This hypothetical.
So can you ask that question again? I was too busy watching Christine do a U-turn. So.
Can you move the camera toward Christine, please?
Yeah, let's assume in a fantasy world that the Board of Education budget stays flat. And you have a 1.94% increase as projected. What does that look like with the present revenue for our mill rate?
Christine didn't weigh in on that.
So if you look on page 3 of the budget that you received, the total revenues with the prior year mill rate, current year grand list are 21,631,515. The total expenditure without the increase for the Board of Ed is 21,490,076. So the revenues are projected to exceed the increase that we are proposing. And as Bob said, there is additional revenue that may be able to be added into the budget. We're just too early in the process for that.
Okay.
I had one more known variable, Mike. So does that also include, Christine, the $190,000 hole we were in from last year? Does that
I'll get the
cover
next
that
one.
as well?
Yes, so if you just look at this as expenditures to revenue and
Okay.
don't look at what we need to do to increase the mill rate to make up the difference, which was how we looked at it last year, yes, we are okay.
We've got that covered, but still some room.
Without the
Christine,
presentation from the Board of Ed, yes.
Okay, right. Now Christine Widener, she can pick up her purse now because she's gonna have a flat budget. And no. We'll wait for her to present her budget, that's for sure. What else from the Board of Finance, please?
So do you want it, but you want to do a presentation, don't you, Christine?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to catch her flat-footed on this just because we were making a
Well,
joke.
she's making a statement that she passed her budget earlier this evening and she could give you the number to be looking at, and then she'll still do the presentation next week. If you want the number, she has it.
Point of order, this is a special meeting, so I don't know if this falls within the agenda
That's
item.
fair. No, that's fair. That would be.
I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm just asking.
No, I think it's fair. This was a Board of Selectmen presentation only for tonight, and that would,
So she'll hold that number to next week. She'll give it to you next Wednesday.
great.
So
Okay.
would it be beneficial to the Board of Finance members if we quickly went through the budget and I did tell you which line items have changes?
It sure would, because I'm trying to do this now, and it's a problem.
That would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
So if I could just ask that perhaps we follow it up with an annotated budget as to where the changes are, as opposed to just rattling off it. I personally, I need time to absorb it. So you detailing where it is isn't going to resonate long-term for me. So
And I'm just asking the other members if it's easier for them.
yeah. And I'm not going to stand in the way of that, but I'm asking that, could you follow up after this with one that's marked that says with change bars or something?
Actually, Christine and Bob, that would be grand. Then we can all take it home and look at it and really stew on it. Thank you.
I agree with Paul and Gary.
How would you like me to do that?
So
I don't know, but we didn't get it. We did, sorry. This is not to be critical, but there wasn't a pre-read on this. Bob did a great job going through slides. I was ticking them as fast as I could see them. And now we're going to do it again. And it leaves some gaps.
And that's fine. I'm just saying, how would you like me to do it? I've given you the budget. You should be looking at all the line items. So if you want me to highlight in color.
I'll take care of it, Christine. It's good. Thank you.
No, I think, do we have that slide deck too, Christine?
I can email out the slide deck, yes.
Yeah, I think that and this budget, we can build it.
So do you want me to go through it or do you not want me to go through it?
Yeah. Hold on, if we could just slow down for 1 second. The version we have, I think, is a PDF, so we can't we'd have to do handwritten annotation. So Christine, if you are okay with, it would be greatly appreciated if we could add a column that just says change and just a formula where it shows plus or minus the change from the approved 2021, 2022 column.
So you have a budget, Sarah, that has the approved 21, 22 line, right? You've got the actual 2020, 2021. So you see that the proposed 2022, 2023. So you already have that information.
No, they don't have
Yeah.
what the change is. They have what the new proposed amount is, but like, there's not something that says B 1.00 was $56,250. And now it's proposed at $50,000. So nothing says minus 6,250. That's what they're looking for.
That's not what we did in those slides.
That's what we did in the slides, but that's not what's in the budget.
Well, the slide
the
was-
slide-
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You're going to say the same thing I'm going to, Sarah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So excited to talk about budgets right now. So the slides are very helpful, Bob, but they were against the original proposed budget versus we want to see what the difference is from last year's budget.
Okay, got it.
So that's exactly right. So again, we can go through each row of the expenditures on the budget that was sent to us this evening. One's going to be 2% increase, one's going to be a 30% increase, that kind of thing. So
We could take it internal to the Board of Finance
Yeah.
and we'll do it by hand. No worries.
It's not a problem. I can do it. I was just asking what you wanted because what you first explained was you just wanted to know which ones had differences, which is just highlighting things. But now you're saying you want to know what the difference is, which is fine. And I can do that. I just want to know so I don't have to do it multiple times. That's all I'm asking is for direction.
Okey dokey. Thank you.
that Excel file that Sarah was asking about, so we can do that, see that math, that will be grand. Oh, I think we have Winona. Sorry if we ignored you. I
No,
saw
it's
your hand
okay.
up.
So I just wanted to clarify, did we ask to have the budget in Excel so that we could do our own math? Is that what the final?
That's what I just asked for. I mean, if we all think that's the easiest way to see what's going on, is, but we'll leave it out there. We don't want Christine to do this thing 3 times.
No, but then we could do our own math if it was converted from PDF to Excel was what I was thinking. And
I think
I see Sarah nodding, so.
Christine?
Is that a reasonable thing to ask for, Christine?
We don't normally give it out in Excel, but if that's what you are asking for, then yes.
Yes, please. Does that help everyone on the Board of Finance? Is there any any other things you want to shift, or are we happy with that? Thumbs up. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go too far, Bob, was there anything, Dan, did I see your hand up? Or are you just waving at me? Dan Smith, were you just waving at me? Okay. Thank you. All right, that was it. So I guess this next line item would
Mike
be.
Anderson was muted and wants to say something. He was
Oh,
waving.
sorry, Mike. Maybe it was Mike. I said Dan. I apologize. Go right ahead.
That's
Mike.
all right. I'm just to clarify, I'm sorry, on the so between the revenue and the expenses, you said the whole from last year is covered, Christine?
So if you just look at this year's budget of how much we're spending and how much we're bringing in for revenue, there is no hole. If you look at how much we needed to change the mill rate to increase it, that was where we were talking about filling the hole.
Okay.
But
What if we wanted to
expenditure versus
what if we
revenue.
wanted to put $191,000 back into the general fund?
Then we would need to exceed the expenses by 192,000.
Right, we'd have less or no buffer after that, right?
Well, right now we have, you said the total expenditures is, hold on a second.
Christine, I had a question. Paul, if we give that to you in Excel, the Board of Finance will not be making changes to that budget without the Board of Selectmen knowing it, correct?
Oh, no, this is a team. We'd all be part of that. Any kind of requests we'd have for changes.
So what we give you in the Excel is going to come back to us looking the same way, and then you will suggest changes, correct?
I would propose that we don't give you back anything. Like what you're giving us is a convenience copy.
You're right.
And then
Yeah,
we just articulate in the meeting what we think the changes should be.
So the Excel is just a work product only
Yeah.
for your personal use
We
and
don't
not,
expect to make,
anything
we're not
official.
going to screw up version control. We just want to see the math.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
again,
check.
this is going to be a working copy that we're going to have, trying to understand what you're asking us.
so I did the math while you guys were talking. So right now, the revenue exceeds the expenditures by 141,439. But again, this is before the Board of Education has done a presentation.
So that suggestion that Mike was talking about,
I just
Sorry.
wanted to know. I just wanted to know what that delta was. And
Yeah.
that's 141 and change.
so 191 back would put us in a $50,000 hole, round numbers.
Correct.
Okay,
But I do think, if I remember correctly, the the municipal government had surplus last year, so I would have expected that the money we took out of undesignated to manage last year's budget was really replaced by the surplus at the end of the year.
So Sarah, you're talking about actuals versus the budget.
Yes.
A lot of times in prior years, it had been budgeted to put, like, basically to put X number of dollars into the undesignated fund in addition to paying the bills, not $191,000, but some small amount. So if you look at past budgets on the town website and look at that last page, that's not officially part of the budget, it would sometimes say that money was also being put into the undesignated fund on top of meeting the expenditures.
Yeah, that's when we were trying to build it back up.
Yeah, and I that's not what I was, that's helpful. That wasn't exactly what I was thinking. I just thought, and I'm just gonna make up a number because I don't have the audit in front of me, but for some reason, I thought we came in under spent from the budget. So the undesignated fund not being a separate bank account, it's just the same one where the budget's managed, right? So if you say you're gonna spend $20 million and you spend, $19.5 million, there's that 500 that just stays in there in the undesignated fund because the budget itself you came in under.
Which is a great point, and I agree with you, Sarah. And also, we got to look at the percentage compared to what our resolution was. The plan for the undesignated fund. If we're in good shape, then I say you take that. If there was any revenue over expenses or any delta, then you take it off the mill rate and help the taxpayers out because we're in good shape with regard to the undesignated fund as it is. If that makes sense to everybody. Am I frozen or something?
No. It's not. Processing.
Are you did I not, was that not clear?
Give it to me again. So you're saying
Okay.
if there was.
All right, so right now we have a positive delta of 141,000. Let's forget putting money back in the undesignated fund because to Sarah's point, any money that was actual that came in under budget for government went back into the undesignated fund to replenish some of what we lost or
never
what we
left it,
used.
whatever you got. Okay.
Right. And we also have I'm losing my mind as far as we have a policy with regard to the undesignated fund where we only want it to be a certain percentage. We're in good shape right now, according to the audit. So that's not our major concern. So if there is ever a positive delta in the end, it should come off the mill rate. The mill rate should go down.
But would you not know that until the end of the budget, the fiscal year?
100%. I'm just talking out loud and thinking forward, because we do have a positive right now and potential more revenue, and Christine's coming in flat. So I just thought.
She's gonna lose her mind. Oh. Okay, no, I'm with you, Mike. I'm with you.
That's all I'm saying is let's not think about putting money in an undesignated fund. It just seems like not the right thing to do, and let's see where we're on the end, and hopefully we can take some burden off if we possibly can.
It was your idea, buddy.
I'm changing my mind.
I like it. All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Just having fun. Any other questions from the Board of Finance? I think the first selectman is still there.
They haven't given up on us.
Okay, so I think I'm with everybody.
Gary Adino has a hand up.
Oh, Gary, please. Sorry.
Just a question, and it's open for the selectmen and the Board of Finance to educate me, but why Why do we go through the process where the Board of Selectmen bring us part of the budget and the Board of Education brings us part of the budget? Why doesn't this roll up to the selectmen and come to us as one budget? Because ultimately, the Board of Selectmen own the budget, including the Board of Education's budget. Because it's the operational budget for the town. But by doing it two ways, sort of, I feel a little exposed here because we got the Board of Selectmen and things are looking rosy and not sure what the Board of Education is going to bring us. So it seems like why wouldn't we just see it together as one? This is what we propose.
It's way too much information, first of all. And I don't think you're right, where I think the Board of Education are in charge of managing their own budget. And the Board of Selectmen are in charge of managing their own budget.
So Mike Anderson, you are correct. The Board of Selectmen has no control or power over the Board of Ed and vice versa. The only thing is all the money comes out of one pocket, comes out of the pocket of the taxpayer. But the budgets have always been, even though it's one complete budget, it's always been two budgets to make up one. We've even voted on them as separate budgets in the past. It's going to referendum as separate budgets. Because the Board of Ed controls their own budget. So yeah, so you can't say it's ultimately the Board of Selectmen's total budget because it's the town's total budget. It's not the Board of Selectmen's total budget.
Yeah, it feels a little clunky because the revenue to cover the budget comes out of the taxes, which falls within the Board of Selectmen. And yet you only present the town's budget, not the lion's share of the budget, which is the Board of Education. It just.
And I know that's probably true in every town and city in the state of Connecticut.
It's also governed by state statutes, right? How this is managed. So in an unchartered town like North Stonington, we're following the Connecticut state statutes, and there's separate statutes for the Board of Education budget management versus the municipal government. And see, my kid just came up on my screen. I'm speaking way out of my depth, but I've had to read a lot of state statutes in the last year. So I don't know if it's as much as we can control as really what's dictated by the state.
Okay.
But I think you're right. Someone talking over there?
Hold on one second. Go ahead, Brett.
So Brett's comment was that,
At the microphone, Brett.
well, I could just say what he's saying. He's saying years ago that the two budgets were proposed on the same day. Now we propose them a week apart.
Yeah, and
So we could have had a longer meeting and had Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen propose our budgets at the same time.
No, it's fine. I can live with it. It seemed in my mind, it all folded up under the Board of Selectmen, but I've been corrected on that and I'm good.
So what it does do is it makes it hard. I mean, it makes it impossible for us to have any kind of discussions about our job as a Board of Finance until everything is presented. So that's the only thing it does is kind of slow our roll a little bit, right? Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah, but you haven't been here when we've had the Board of Education present, and we've been here for 6 hours. So
Thankfully, I haven't.
There's always next week.
Mm.
Speaking of that,
Who's bringing the donuts?
that's right. So are we good to move to future strategies to talk about next week? Any more comments for Bob and his team?
nope.
Great. Next line item is future strategies. So Christine, maybe you can help me with the calendar. It is the other Christine is going to present to us next week. Is that right?
Yes, the next presentation is next Wednesday, and then the Board of Finance is scheduled to discuss the budgets and recommend changes on the 16th.
Okay. And how many Wednesdays do we have for that discussion? Is it only a single one? Sorry,
That Wednesday.
just 1 week. Okay. So
Just 1 week, because then you're supposed to give your feedback. Then the representation is scheduled for the 23rd by both boards. If anything is supposed to be changed, which I'm sure you'll say it's perfect and nothing needs to be changed. And then on the 30th, the Board of Finance is then supposed to rediscuss, deliberate, and move to the hearing on the 11th of April.
sounds aggressive and
Well,
optimistic.
if we need to have some kind of special meeting in between, on a Monday night, we got to do what we got to do if there's like so much that we have to talk about.
And to be honest, I mean, can we say it, just a little bit of straight talk here? Are we really married to that calendar? I mean, if something had to happen and things slipped a week or two, does North Stonington fall down, or is this really all on backing up to those tax bills?
It depends who you ask. Everybody in the room is staring at me because they know that I am very aggressive about the town ordinance for the annual town meeting, which says the first Monday in May shall be the annual town meeting. So we do need to get the tax bills out so that we can get the revenue coming in July. Is there a little bit of wiggle room? Yes. By ordinance, no. But in actuality, yes.
I think we strive to stick to your calendar. And
Look at it as ambitious, not aggressive.
that's right. I might even call it aspirational, but we'll see.
It's a long cycle. I would prefer not to stretch it out any more than we need to.
So we'll do some Monday meetings if we had to.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other bit, Christine, would be you're going to supply the Board of Finance members with that spreadsheet so we can have some more stuff to look over.
Yes. So first thing tomorrow morning, I will add the column with the changes. I will send out the slide deck and that version of the budget, and just know I will add something on it that says work product only. So everyone knows that that is not the official.
And what might even be helpful, I'm not sure if Christine W is still in the room, is there a chance that we can get hers before next Wednesday? That would kind of help us do a little homework if possible.
She is not in the room, so I would suggest that you send her an email with that request.
Will do. Board of Finance members, you think that would be helpful to have it
Yes.
beforehand? Okay.
Yes, Chairman, please.
Brett just said that they did vote at their meeting to approve it early so they could send it out ahead of time. So just send that to Christine to remind her.
Will do. And we know that we cannot fire emails back and forth with one another. Once we get it, it's just for us to absorb prior to next Wednesday. We want to break any rules.
You are allowed to send me questions if you have a question. And again, you have access to all of the department requests in the SharePoint. So I will actually resend you that link along with these documents. So everything's in one place. Is there anything else that you want? So everything's in one place.
No, but thank you. So another bit of strategy. I mean, I want to recognize Joe's comments. I did change the format of our agenda to have public comments on the front. My logic was we spent a lot of time talking, doing some work through our meetings, and then at the end we kind of try to, I don't want to say undo everything that we did during the meeting, but there's a lot of comments about it. I'm okay to add that back in there, but I just want to see if it brings value. What do you guys thinking?
I think during this, sorry, go ahead.
No, Mike, go ahead.
I think during this process, when we're deliberating, that allowing public comment at the end is probably a good thing. I think, it's particularly during these March meetings when we're really just trying to decide, allowing some comment beforehand and after is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're asking for meetings going forward because we can't add an agenda item tonight, but
Right.
I agree. I don't mind the public comments. I find them to be helpful in terms of understanding what people consider important and to them. So I'm with Mike on that one.
Okay. No, I'm happy to add it back unless someone else has a comment that they're dead set against it. I'm happy to add it back to our all agendas going forward. I don't see any hands waving, so I guess that's okay. Oh, Winona, please go right ahead.
I have a question about the revenues on the motor vehicle taxes. And Christine, if we have this, if you could just remind me where it's at, but what I'm looking for is a reminder of what the paid taxes on motor vehicles will look like after the change in the value of vehicles this year. So I think one of the slides that Bob showed, was it 400,000 increase? How much of that is motor vehicles? Is my question.
So you got the report from the assessor with what the overall changes were. We didn't break it down. Everything falls under a 1.00. Bob had some statistics that he's going to share now as far as what made up, what was motor vehicle and what was everything else.
So Wyona, we had $767,467 was the total. Of that, I calculated 52% of that number was motor vehicles, increase in motor vehicle taxes, and 48% was real estate and personal. So basically, it's a 50-50 split.
So $350,000 increase due to the generalization of the increased value of vehicles in the town.
Yes.
I think that's a number that we should try to keep in mind as these discussions continue. Because that's coming from taxpayers' pockets that wasn't necessarily a request last year.
Is your concern also a little, Winona, that these values might get more normalized in future years? Or is it just that these are just essentially new taxes to our taxpayers?
I mean, I think it's a general concern in that it's new taxes this year on top of the reevaluation of home values for a lot of folks the previous year, on top of inflation and all of the other increased normal cost of living charges that we just saw were impacting our own budget for this year as well. So just keeping in mind that even if we kept the mill rate the same, this is going to be an increase for people, period.
Yep, because the increased values. No, I understand that for sure. That's a very, very good point. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob, for that information. I appreciate it.
Hey, question for Bob. When you guys figured the amount of money coming in for them, that tax that Wayne was talking about, did you figure it full or had you cut it a little bit off knowing that it might not be there next year?
We took the number directly from the assessor.
So use the total number.
He gave me the total number, correct.
Total number. Okay, so next year could drop.
It could, we don't have, but we're going on, what is the revenue now?
Okay.
What do we get now? And that's why we use it at today's mill rate also.
And we also factor in a 98.5% collection rate, knowing that not everybody is actually going to pay their taxes. So that's the rate we use every year.
All right, so you took the total and then the minus, okay, thank you.
What other discussions under future strategies might we have before we wait for the next presentation next week?
Paul, if we can just go back to having approval of minutes on the agenda.
Will
Moving
do. We
forward.
have about, thank you, Amy. We have Christine. Thank you, Amy, for writing them all. And Winona. So yeah, I'll add that for next week as well. So we'll have a couple extra not extra, but new items on our agenda. Okay. Anything else, friends? If not, I'd love to see a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Gary. Anyone second that motion? Thank you. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
I see a clean sweep. Thank you very much. Looking forward to those new bits of information and fun at the next meeting. Good night, all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, John Boy. Got to bring it back.